Hey guys, so this is something probably most of you don't know, and that is I have been target shooting since I can remember, basically till today. And it's something I've done with my family, kind of as a bonding thing, and I really kind of enjoy it. It's a kind of pastime for me. Frankly, I like to shoot. I love to shoot, and it was really interesting, kind of watching the Second Amendment debate, the regulation debate, if you want to call it that. And I think it's weird to think that it kind of really, the modern attempt at regulation really got started with the Reagan assassination attempt, and how the movement that's spawned out of that actually had a lot of successes initially. They were actually able to get various forms of regulation, such as numbers on guns, and they were eventually able to limit magazines and even ban handguns in some cities. And there was a bunch of other legislation. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but it's weird to think that they had that much success initially, and then what ended up happening is they ended up basically getting stopped by the the first Clinton midterm. When that occurred, enough Republicans got elected that were pro-gun, if you want to put it that way, that it slowed down the debate. It basically paralyzed it. Now they were able to push some more legislation in the state level, but federal was it was really slow moving. And then what happened is they had Columbine, and then there was one last big push. But once again, the Republicans had some of the Congress, and they were pretty hard lined on that. So it ended up, and it effectively slowed down the debate on the federal level and dragged it out to the presidential election. And when that occurred, when Gore lost, or I don't know what you want to say, he wasn't in the White House, is what I'm trying to say. But when he lost, Bush got elected. That was it. That was the end of the debate, effectively, on federal level. And he ended up appointing a couple of Supreme Court judges, and then they ended up banning. They ended up finding unconstitutional a couple of the bans on handguns in D.C. and I think Chicago. It might have been New York. It's hard for me to remember. But anyway, they ended up overturning those, and I have a lot of problems with the Supreme Court, but like I said, this is not one of them. I have a lot of problems with Bush too, but this wasn't one of them. I think this is one of the few things that me and the former president and the Supreme Court agree on. There's a lot of things we disagree on, but this was definitely one we agree on. And yeah, I was pretty happy when that ruling came out. Now, you know where I stand. I'm pretty pro-gun. If you want to put it in that terms, I don't particularly like to hunt or kill animals in general, but I have, and I don't mind. But I primarily am a target shooter, and yeah. So, having said that, though, I think that it's important to hear the other side's points. So I'm going to read them, and then I'm going to have rebuttals for them. And if you guys want to throw in more arguments against firearms or for firearms, go ahead. I'd love to hear some debate. Frankly, a lot of these videos end up just evaporating into non-debate formats, and they just end up yelling at each other. So hopefully that doesn't occur. But then this is a political site, so if it does, that's politics, man. If you can out-yell the other person, sometimes that just means you win. Anyway, without further ado, one of the arguments you hear most often is the Second Amendment. I wrote it on a piece of paper if I look down. Anyway, the Second Amendment doesn't apply today. That back then you needed to hunt to live, basically. Now, do I think this argument is reasonable or whatever? No. Like, I agree with the Supreme Court on this one. The Supreme Court says that the Bill of Rights guarantees the right of citizenry to have the right to bear arms. I mean, it's in the amendments. It's in, the founding, the Bill of Rights is something that, they're supposed to be inalienable. I can never say that word, but they're supposed to be rights that you can't take away, that they're fundamental, that they are human rights. Now, you can disagree with their concept of human rights, but it's what our country is founded on. So I tend to support it to a certain extent. I was raised in America. That's kind of my justification. Now, is that accurate? Does that mean that those facts are necessarily right? No, but I do agree that I like to shoot, and therefore I'm going to agree with it, whether it's right or wrong. Now, somebody else probably would argue that further, but I'm not going to. If you are a hunter, why do you need a high-powered weapon? This argument I think is interesting because I don't hunt animals for the most part, but I like to target shoot. How does that affect me? I can't have a high-powered target shooting weapon. I mean, I think it makes it a lot more challenging. I'm just saying, I don't plan on killing anybody, but why can't I have a high-powered weapon? Just because somebody else might do something? I mean, think about it. Somebody might kill somebody in a bathtub, or somebody might use a knife to kill somebody. We don't end the use of bathtubs or pools or knives because of that kind of logic. We don't necessarily even regulate them anymore. You can buy knives anywhere. You can get a plastic pool at Walmart. Also, I don't know if this is actually true, but I've heard this. Pools kill more people than, handguns or rifles in a given year. If that's true, why not ban pools if you're really concerned about life? You know what I'm saying? Also, there's, of course, the real wig argument, if you want to put it that way, where, theoretically the government could become tyrannical and it might be necessary to overthrow it. In that case, having weaponry that is more than just killing deer or whatever would be necessary. Now, do I think that's going to occur? Hell no. I'm being real with you. I am. Now, do I think that that's a necessary protection for our society? I think that it definitely, let me put it this way. I think if you look at history, there's one true thing. I was a history minor, and there's one thing I took away from history. Two things. Well, number one is the people that end up winning out usually end up writing some of the history. That's common sense. Everybody kind of knows that. But number two, whenever a group of people end up getting armed and another group of people are either unarmed or limited in their arms, this group of people get fucked. Usually. You can look at history. Go get a history book. You'll see what I mean. It doesn't have to be guns. It can be bow and arrows. It can be basic body armor, or not body armor, plate armor. It just happens. And yeah, the slaughter is at a different rate because the weapons have more ability or less ability to kill, but the basic premise is the same. The people with the guns usually beat the people without the guns. And I don't want to be on the side without the guns, therefore having the ability to be armed is a good thing. Now, you can disagree with that argument. That's fine, but that's a good enough argument for me. What's the other? There's a bunch of them, but ban guns lead to violence. Oh, that because guns kill people, we should ban them. This is kind of a simplistic bumper sticker kind of argument. And I'm for bumper sticker arguments, but once again, I go to the pool argument where I'd say, pools are not necessary for the most part. And we have them and more people die in them, and we don't think about regulating pools. Maybe we should if we're going to start worrying about the amount of people dying by guns. I mean, like I said, I enjoy shooting guns, so frankly, I don't think that... I mean, I guess the point is that from this mindset, it's like if you have a gun, you're going to kill somebody. And to a certain extent, that's just not true. I don't think I'm ever going to shoot anybody. I really don't. So it's one of those arguments that I just think is kind of flawed, and it doesn't really apply to the people they're talking about. It's kind of a stereotypical view of, gun owners. And I kind of don't like that argument. Just because it's like I don't like being stereotyped. Only the army and the police should have firearms. Once again, if God forbid this becomes a police state or a dictatorship, or the government collapses and some bad shit happens. Let's just put it that way. If bad shit happens eventually, it might be better to have some firearms than just relying on the police or army. I mean, I'll give you an example. You look at Katrina. Katrina was a hurricane. Everybody knew it was coming, and what ended up happening is the entire area got blown to shit, and then the government eventually intervened, but for quite a while, people were on their own. There were riots, there were rapes, there was a lot of bad shit that went down during that period of time, least of which, I mean, there was a lot of looting and stuff. I'm not going to defend people shooting people over stealing shit sometimes. I mean, I don't want to get too much into that, but if somebody's stealing food and they're starving, that's too close to justified for me to really argue against it, unless there's like one apple. Anyway, I don't want to get too into that, but in that case, it might be a good idea to have a gun to protect yourself, not just from people that have guns, but also from natural threats, alligators, as well as more simply, let's say you don't have any food. You see a squirrel, you shoot it, you eat it. I mean, you maybe not a squirrel, but you follow my logic. Now, in a lot of ways, these are kind of, worst case scenarios, but at the same time, they are not that far out scenarios. You follow? Like, shit like this could happen theoretically on the West Coast. Let's say that big Cascadia earthquake happens here. Half the continent goes away, or not half the continent, but half the coastline goes away. Well, what's realistically, if Los Angeles, Seattle, Portland are all at clusterfuck mode, everything's gone, all the plates go, the ring of fire goes off all at once, maybe, hypothetically. Realistically, is the government going to have the ability to intervene in time? Probably not, if you're realistic about it. You're going to be on your own for a while. And realistically, that means that, shit's going to get bad. It might be necessary, or you might want a firearm to eat, to protect yourself. I just think that's the case. It's kind of like I've got a power generator over there in that room. You can't see it, but maybe I should turn it. No, I won't bother. Anyway, do I need that? Not particularly. I don't need it today. I don't need it tomorrow. But if the power goes out, I'll need it. You see what I'm saying? So just because it might not seem necessary now, doesn't mean they're not necessary later. And just because somebody misuses something now, doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that I shouldn't have the right to use it. You follow? Anyway, those are kind of the arguments that I hear fairly frequently. I'd like to go on, but I'm running out of time. If you want to post an argument below, please do. I look forward to hearing them. This wasn't necessarily the best case for the Second Amendment. I understand that. But, hell, it was my case. So if you want to post a better case, go ahead. Frankly, I think that this is definitely an issue that seems to have been temporarily won. Knock on wood and all that. But, yeah. So, once again, you can comment, subscribe, rate. Have a great day. Bye.